A coming-out lesbian rom-com without the rom. Yes, indeed, it does exist in the form of the 2006 film Grey Matters. I mean, there is some sapphic romance, like a little smidge of it, and for the rest it's a coming-out story using all the conventions of a rom-com. I guess this was US's answer to the only other sapphic rom-com that has that mainstream, slick 90s to 2000 rom-com aesthetic, Imagine Me and You from 2005. But does it hold up? Grey and her brother Sam are joined at the hip. They do everything together, dance, run, and even live together. When they get mistaken for a couple at a dinner party...
She thinks we're together.
Like together?
Like screwing each other together.
Yeah,
right?
well, whatever.
You know what? You're not the first one to think that.
What? Thank you.
They decide it is high time that they venture out to find themselves partners.
Okay, I'll look for a hot fixated girl for you, and you look for a guy for me who is deep and sensitive and funny.
Grey is reluctant to give dating another go.
I see myself as this charming hotel that's beautifully romantic and wonderful on the outside, but on the inside it just needs a ton of renovations.
Instead, wanting to focus on her work because she is in the middle of pitching to a big client and struggling.
Why don't you call me when you have something original to present?
But she is quite willing to help Sam find someone. While pretending to own a dog in order to meet singles at the park, Grey spots Charlie and she instantly sees the potential. It's clear that Sam and Charlie have hit it off, but when they announce that they're getting married a mere 24 hours after meeting each other, Grey is a little concerned.
Remember what Mom always used to say? When it was right, we would know. Well, trust me. It's right.
This concern only escalates when, in Vegas, for their shotgun wedding, Charlie, in a very drunken state, kisses Grey, and Grey's world is flipped upside down when she realizes she has feelings for Charlie.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
What does this mean for her and her identity, and what does it mean for her relationship with her brother?
Do you remember that night we spent together in Las Vegas before you got married to Sam?
Barely. I mean, I remember having a great time, but I think you got me too drunk to remember anything else.
The casting is certainly worthy of note given it has familiar Hollywood faces. Heather Graham, who has a prolific filmography, but I know her best from Austin Powers and Boogie Nights. Tom Cavanagh, also prolific, but most recently finished 9 years on the show The Flash. There is Molly Shannon as the quirky best friend, and to be honest, she kind of steals the movie for me. There is also some very specifically queer-coded casting. Alan Cumming from The Good Wife, who is an out bisexual. Julia Bartlett, who you will most certainly recognize from The L Word, and a cameo from Gloria Gaynor, whose song I Will Survive has been adopted as a bona fide queer anthem, tells me that the writer-director Sue Kramer is intimate with the queer community. In fact, apparently the story was partially inspired by her sister. I can see what the film is doing, taking what is usually a dramatic narrative about coming out and framing it with the rom-com formula, offering just enough of a twist on the formulaic genre to make viewers feel like it's a fresh take. But it's this very twist that for me leads to its key flaw, and I'll discuss that in a bit. Unfortunately, it wasn't just that which lent itself to a film that felt overall somewhat underwhelming. Now, the film is quite watchable, don't get me wrong. It's one that I remember mostly enjoying when I saw it almost 2 decades ago, but it's not one that ever seemed to get mentioned in sapphic film and TV circles, and upon rewatching, the reason seems clearer. Firstly, the casting of Heather as Grey just comes off as so straight. I didn't fully buy her as a closeted sapphic, and it's not necessarily because of her very femme presentation, just because I didn't really buy that she is into women. The performance felt like it was more concentrated on being the typical cute, neurotic and clumsy romantic lead stereotype, and it was really only with the conversation with Charlie at the end when she had tears in her eyes that I felt something was there with regards to her unrequited feelings. I certainly didn't feel any chemistry between Grey and Charlie, which maybe that's how it needed to be in order for Charlie to keep her integrity within the premise, but I also had to believe that Charlie would drunkenly kiss Grey, and at the least I needed to feel the attraction from Grey's side. I also didn't feel the chemistry between Grey and Rachel at the end either. The film did too little, in my opinion, to plant the seeds of that eventual outcome in the earlier part of the movie. I knew where it was headed just by the fact that Julia Bartlett was in the role, but not much else really pointed to it, and so they wind up in a gay bar at the end of the film, and the flirting fell flat. But then suddenly it's all on for Grey to head over for a nightcap, nudge nudge, wink wink. But where is there a moment for them to actually connect, have chemistry, build some tension, maybe even kiss? Not to mention the cross-dressing moment from Alan Cumming's character felt off somehow. Maybe it was fine. I know they weren't trying to invalidate cross-dressing or trans women, but it was played for comedic effect, and ultimately, I didn't find it that funny. Molly Shannon's character Carrie would have been a riot, however, so I wish they'd gone with her taking Charlie out to her first gay bar instead. But this just points to a larger problem with the script. It felt like it was a mishmash of various successful elements, cherry-picked and strung together from other rom-coms and rom-com tropes. I was seeing some clear callbacks to movies like When Harry Met Sally.
I like a hot dog with kraut on one side and relish on the other, with ketchup on the kraut and mustard on the relish, but don't let the two touch.
Or to the many Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire films. And that, combined with the aforementioned lack of emotional resonance and a general lack of sparkle in the script, meant that the film ultimately failed to fully gel. And it felt like the story didn't have a whole lot of depth. Not that rom-coms are generally that deep, and like perhaps the movie would have gotten away with it if Grey and Charlie had been the endgame. As I mentioned before, when playing into a genre of film, you want to offer something that is similar enough to other offerings that it satisfies the audience's expectation while giving them just enough novelty for it to feel fresh. And alas here, I think choosing to set up a premise where Grey doesn't get the woman she falls in love with and then offering a poorer last-minute substitute that doesn't have enough build-up as a replacement undercuts a core expectation of the genre. The movie builds all the moments between Grey and Charlie, with them dancing at the start of the film, going wedding dress shopping where Grey totally clocks the sexy lingerie. They share a bath and champagne where Charlie is very naked. Then there is singing on stage, dancing in the living room, and of course the shared kiss. Charlie is played off as doing all of this very innocently, but we're denied any kind of catharsis of Grey declaring her love for Charlie, even though it is unrequited, which I guess was the right move to show Grey accepting that she needed to move on, and instead the true climax of the movie is Grey and Sam reconciling after she comes out to him and telling him about the kiss.
Sam?
You know, just because you're totally gay and in love with my wife doesn't mean we can't work things out.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Ooh, now this is good.
None of this is wrong per se as a narrative, but when you do it within the rom-com formula, it doesn't quite satisfy, given the core staple of this genre is about the lovers overcoming whatever obstacle to be together. In essence, the very main expectation of this genre was subverted, and thus we end up with a film that is a rom-com without the rom. Maybe it was a victim of its time and the film was constructed this way in the hope that it could cross over from being a sapphic film to a mainstream rom-com, which would explain why they had Grey going on one last hurrah to try and shove herself into a heterosexual lifestyle by asking men out on dates, instead of her trying to date women to realize that she is definitively gay. Perhaps this betrayal doesn't sting quite as acutely as the ending of Kissing Jessica Stein, because Grey was never going to get Charlie. Charlie was very obviously deeply in love with Sam, but it stings nonetheless. If you do want to know more about the movie Kissing Jessica Stein, which is in my opinion a vastly superior film in spite of the ending, then click on the video that is on your screen. Until next time, lady lovers.